On February 10, 2025, President Donald Trump made a significant announcement regarding international trade, declaring the imposition of a 25% tariff on all imported steel and aluminum products entering the United States. This decision, which was revealed during Trump's flight to New Orleans for the Super Bowl, is expected to have substantial ramifications for trade relations, particularly with Canada and Mexico, two of the U.S.'s largest suppliers of these materials. Announcement details. While aboard Air Force One, Trump emphasized any steel coming into the United States is going to have a 25% tariff and confirmed that aluminum would be subject to the same duties. He also indicated that he would be introducing reciprocal tariffs targeting countries that impose taxes on U.S. goods. These reciprocal tariffs are anticipated to be detailed on February 11 or 12, 2025. Economic context and implications. The tariffs are part of Trump's long-standing policy approach towards trade, which he argues is necessary to protect American jobs and industries. Historically, tariffs have been a contentious issue, often leading to price increases for consumers and retaliatory measures from affected trading partners. Analysts predict that these new tariffs could raise costs for sectors reliant on steel and aluminum, such as automotive manufacturing and the beverage industry, particularly those using aluminum for cans. The announcement was met with immediate financial market reactions, with shares of U.S. steel companies seeing a rise in futures trading. Notable companies like Cleveland-Cliffs and U.S. Steel experienced significant stock increases of up to 8% and 5% respectively. Reactions from trading partners. The response from international stakeholders was swift. Canadian Premier Doug Ford criticized the move, describing it as creating economic chaos and highlighting the interconnectedness of the U.S. and Canadian economies. Canadian officials pointed out that many U.S. jobs are linked to the steel and aluminum inputs from Canada. The European Union, while not having received formal notification of the tariffs, expressed strong disapproval and indicated that it would respond if the tariffs were officially implemented. French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot stated that the EU would replicate any imposed tariffs to defend its interests, while German officials warned that a tariff conflict would ultimately lead to losses on all sides. Historical context. This announcement marks a continuation of Trump's aggressive trade policy approach, reminiscent of his previous term in office when he imposed similar tariffs on steel and aluminum from various countries. In 2018, Trump had introduced a 25% tariff on steel and a 10% tariff on aluminum imports, which he later negotiated and lifted under certain conditions with Canada and Mexico. During his first term, Trump frequently linked tariffs to broader issues including immigration control and national security, arguing that maintaining a robust domestic manufacturing base was essential for the country's independence. Upcoming developments. As the situation unfolds, further announcements regarding reciprocal tariffs are expected within the week. Trump hinted at targeting various countries, particularly those that levy their own tariffs on U.S. imports. This continued focus on tariffs aligns with Trump's broader economic strategy of utilizing trade measures as leverage to negotiate better terms for the U.S. in international trade agreements. Conclusion. In summary, Trump's announcement of a 25% tariff on imported steel and aluminum is a bold move that underscores his administration's commitment to protecting American industries and jobs. However, it also raises concerns about potential retaliatory measures from trading partners and the broader implications for the U.S. economy. As the administration prepares to unveil further details on reciprocal tariffs, the business community and international stakeholders remain on high alert, anticipating the potential impact on global trade dynamics. Counterintuitive information. 1. Tariffs as a revenue source versus economic growth. While tariffs are often presented as a means to protect American jobs and industries, they can lead to increased costs for consumers, which could ultimately harm the economy. The expectation that tariffs will boost domestic manufacturing while simultaneously increasing consumer prices contradicts the idea of economic growth through lower consumer costs and increased spending power. 2. Political support for tariffs. Trump's decision to announce tariffs on steel and aluminum is framed as a protective measure for American industries. However, the reactions from allied countries like Canada and Mexico suggest that such tariffs may lead to retaliatory measures that could hurt U.S. industries reliant on foreign steel and aluminum, such as automotive manufacturing, which complicates the narrative of tariffs being a universally beneficial policy. 3. Impact on global trade relations. The immediate market reaction saw stocks of U.S. steel companies rise, indicating investor optimism in the short term. However, this does not account for the potential long-term consequences of trade wars, such as diminished international trade relationships and increased prices for consumers. The rise in stock prices contrasts with the broader economic implications of a trade conflict, presenting a paradox between short-selling and longer-term economic health. 4. Perception of success. Trump's administration has historically used tariffs as leverage in trade negotiations, suggesting that they are a way to gain concessions from other countries. However, the idea that imposing tariffs will lead to successful negotiations is counterintuitive, as many economists argue that tariffs can create economic friction and lead to retaliation rather than cooperation. 5. Timing of tariff implementation. Trump's decision to impose tariffs early in his presidency instead of waiting for broader economic strategies to take effect is unexpected. Historically, tariffs have been a tool used after comprehensive economic assessments, but this immediate application without thorough analysis reflects a more reactionary approach that could destabilize markets. 6. Consumer expectations versus reality. Surveys indicated that consumers are concerned about inflation rising due to tariffs. The expectation that tariffs will lead to increased costs contradicts the administration's narrative that they will ultimately benefit the economy by protecting jobs and boosting manufacturing, showcasing a disconnect between policy outcomes and consumer sentiment. 7. Reciprocal tariffs. The notion that reciprocal tariffs will lead to a fairer trading environment is counterintuitive. While they are designed to level the playing field, they can also escalate trade tensions and lead to a cycle of retaliation which may harm both domestic and foreign economies rather than achieving the intended fairness in trade relations. 8. Global market interdependency. The strong interdependence of U.S. and Canadian economies, where hundreds of thousands of American jobs rely on steel and aluminum imports from Canada, illustrates a complex relationship. The belief that tariffs can be unilaterally beneficial overlooks the reality that both economies are deeply intertwined and that protectionist measures could lead to job losses in the U.S. as supply chains are disrupted. 9. Political versus economic goals. Trump's use of tariffs as a tool for achieving broader political goals, such as controlling immigration and drug trafficking, suggests a complex interplay between economic strategy and political maneuvering. This juxtaposes the idea that economic policies should be primarily focused on growth and stability, revealing a counterintuitive use of economic levers for political ends. 10. Long-term versus short-term gains. The immediate rise in stock prices for steel companies might suggest a positive outcome for the tariffs. However, this short-term gain does not account for potential long-term repercussions, such as increased costs for consumers and the risk of trade wars that could undermine the stability of the U.S. economy. This disparity reveals a common disconnect in economic policy where short-term victories overshadow long-term sustainability. The announcement by President Donald Trump on February 10, 2025, regarding the imposition of a 25% tariff on all imported steel and aluminum products is a significant development in U.S. trade policy. While much of the media coverage has focused on the immediate reactions and potential consequences, there are several important aspects of this decision that are likely to be overlooked yet are crucial for understanding its broader implications. 1. Historical context and repeated patterns. One critical point often missed is the historical context of Trump's tariff strategies. His administration has a pattern of using tariffs as a tool not just for economic policy but also as a bargaining chip in negotiations over unrelated issues, such as immigration and drug trafficking. This approach indicates that tariffs are not merely economic measures but are integrated into a larger geopolitical strategy. The significance lies in understanding that this decision could be part of a broader trend where trade policies are intertwined with domestic political agendas. By framing tariffs as protective measures for American jobs and security, Trump is capitalizing on nationalist sentiments which can have lasting effects on U.S. trade relations and domestic industries. 2. Impact on domestic industries beyond steel and aluminum. While the primary focus is on the steel and aluminum sectors, the implications of these tariffs extend far beyond these industries. The automotive sector, which heavily relies on steel and aluminum, is likely to face increased production costs, which could translate into higher prices for consumers. This ripple effect is often overlooked in initial analyses, which primarily consider the industries directly impacted by the tariffs. Moreover, industries such as construction, shipbuilding, and packaging, which use these metals extensively, could also experience increased costs and supply chain disruptions. This broader economic impact may lead to consumer price inflation and could strain relationships with industries that are indirectly affected, creating a backlash against the tariffs that is not immediately apparent. 3. Reciprocal tariffs and escalation of trade wars. Trump's mention of reciprocal tariffs signals a potential escalation of trade tensions, yet this aspect often receives insufficient attention. The idea of imposing tariffs on countries that tax U.S. goods suggests a tit-for-tat approach that could lead to a full-blown trade war. The significance of this lies in the potential for retaliatory measures from affected countries, which could escalate into a cycle of tariffs that stifles international trade. Countries such as Canada and Mexico, which are major suppliers of steel and aluminum to the U.S., may respond with their own tariffs affecting U.S. exports to these markets. This reciprocation could further complicate trade relations and negatively impact U.S. businesses that rely on exporting goods, particularly agricultural and manufactured products. 4. Global supply chain dynamics. In an increasingly interconnected global economy, the imposition of tariffs disrupts established supply chains. The significance of this disruption is often overlooked in favor of a more immediate focus on domestic job protection. For many industries, the reliance on imported materials is critical for maintaining competitive pricing and meeting production deadlines. The tariffs could lead to a re-evaluation of supply chain strategies, prompting companies to seek alternative sources which may not be as cost-effective or reliable. This shift could result in long-term changes in global trade patterns, affecting not only U.S. businesses but also international relationships. 5. Investor reactions and market volatility. While the immediate rise in shares of U.S. steel companies post-announcement is widely reported, the longer-term market implications are often under-discussed. Tariffs can create volatility in financial markets as investors react to changes in expected revenues and costs for companies across various sectors. The potential for increased inflation due to higher production costs, coupled with the uncertainty surrounding retaliatory measures from other countries, creates a precarious environment for investors. Understanding these market dynamics is essential for recognizing how tariffs can influence not just specific industries but the overall health of the economy. 6. Political ramifications and public sentiment. Finally, the political ramifications of this tariff announcement warrant deeper examination. Trump's use of tariffs as a political tool may energize his base, particularly among those who view these measures as necessary for protecting American jobs. However, the potential negative consequences for consumers and industries could lead to public backlash. As consumers begin to feel the effects of increased prices, public sentiment may shift, impacting future elections and policy decisions. This interplay between tariff policy and public opinion is critical for understanding the sustainability of such measures in the long run. Conclusion. In summary, while the immediate ramifications of Trump's 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports are significant, the broader implications, historical context, impacts on various industries, potential for escalating trade wars, disruption of global supply chains, investor reactions, and political ramifications are equally important to consider. These elements highlight the complexity of trade policies and their far-reaching effects. which often go unnoticed in mainstream discussions.
Understanding these nuances is essential for comprehensively analyzing the potential consequences of such a significant economic decision. 1. Impact on trade relations. Trump's announcement of a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports is set to significantly strain trade relations with key partners, particularly Canada and Mexico. These countries are major suppliers of these metals to the U.S., and the tariffs are likely to provoke retaliatory measures from them which could exacerbate existing trade tensions. Historical context shows that past tariffs led to negotiations and compromises, but the current geopolitical climate raises concerns about a more aggressive response.
The looming threat of reciprocal tariffs also suggests a tit-for-tat escalation that may destabilize North American trade dynamics.
2. Economic repercussions across sectors. The tariffs are expected to ripple through multiple sectors of the U.S. economy, notably impacting industries that rely heavily on steel and aluminum, such as automotive and beverage manufacturers. Increased costs for raw materials could lead to higher consumer prices, affecting inflation rates. This could also result in job losses in sectors that depend on competitive pricing from international suppliers. The immediate stock market reaction with shares of U.S. steel companies rising indicates investor optimism about domestic manufacturers, but this may not reflect broader economic stability. 3. Reciprocal tariffs and global reactions. Trump's intention to introduce reciprocal tariffs against countries that impose duties on U.S. goods underscores a shift towards a more confrontational trade policy.
The global reaction has been swift, with Canada and the EU expressing serious concerns and preparing to respond to potential tariffs. The EU's commitment to replicate any U.S. tariffs highlights the interconnectedness of global trade and the potential for widespread economic consequences.
This scenario raises the specter of a trade war reminiscent of previous confrontations during Trump's first term. For political strategy and domestic implications, the tariffs align with Trump's broader political strategy, which frames trade policy as a means to protect American jobs and industries. This approach resonates with key voter demographics that prioritize domestic manufacturing and job security.
However,
the political implications extend beyond economic interests. The tariffs are also tied to Trump's stances on immigration and national security. This multifaceted strategy may rally his base but risks alienating moderate voters and could lead to backlash from consumers facing higher prices. The intersection of economic policy and political strategy highlights the complexities of governance in a polarized environment. 1. Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act 1930. This was a significant piece of protectionist legislation in the United States that raised duties on hundreds of imports.
The act was designed to protect American industry during the Great Depression by making imported goods more expensive. However, it led to retaliatory tariffs from other countries, resulting in a substantial decline in international trade and worsening the economic situation globally. The Smoot-Hawley Act is often cited as a contributing factor to the deepening of the Great Depression. 2. Section 301 Tariffs on China 2018, under President Donald Trump.
The U.S. imposed tariffs on Chinese goods starting in 2018 as part of a broader strategy to address trade imbalances and intellectual property theft. The tariffs began at 25% on $50 billion of Chinese imports and expanded to include hundreds of billions in additional goods. China retaliated with tariffs on U.S. products, leading to a trade war that affected global supply chains and markets. The conflict highlighted the complexities of global trade relations and the potential for escalation through tariffs. 3. The Tariff of 1828 Tariff of Abominations. This tariff was enacted to protect northern industries by imposing high duties on imported goods, including textiles. However, it was met with fierce opposition in the southern states, where it was seen as economically harmful. The South argued that it favored northern manufacturers at their expense, leading to the nullification crisis in which South Carolina attempted to nullify the tariff. This event underscored the tensions between regional interests in the U.S. and foreshadowed deeper conflicts that would eventually lead to the Civil War.
Future outlook on Trump's 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports.
The recent announcement by President Donald Trump to impose a 25% tariff on all imported steel and aluminum products marks a significant turning point in U.S. trade policy. This decision, expected to have profound implications for domestic industries and international relations,
may shape the economic landscape in the coming years.
Below are predictions and analyses of the potential outcomes of this tariff imposition.
1. Impact on domestic industries.
The tariffs are likely to lead to a temporary boost in U.S. steel and aluminum manufacturers. Companies such as U.S. Steel and Nucor could see a rise in stock prices and profits due to reduced competition from foreign suppliers. This, however, may come at a cost. Industries relying heavily on these materials, like automotive, construction, and beverage sectors, could face increased production costs. Analysts predict that many firms may pass these costs on to consumers, resulting in higher prices for products ranging from cars to canned beverages.
2. Job market fluctuations.
While Trump's administration argues that the tariffs will protect American jobs within the steel and aluminum industries, the broader job market might experience disruptions. Industries dependent on steel and aluminum may reduce their workforce to mitigate rising expenses, potentially leading to layoffs. Conversely, if U.S. manufacturers expand production to meet domestic demand, there could be new job opportunities created in these sectors, albeit in a limited scope compared to the losses in other industries.
3. Repercussions in trade relations.
The immediate response from Canada, Mexico, and other trading partners is expected to be retaliatory tariffs. Canada's Premier Doug Ford's critique of Trump's actions indicates a strong likelihood that Canada will impose its own tariffs on U.S. goods. The EU has also signaled potential retaliatory measures.
This escalation might lead to a trade war, which could further strain diplomatic relations and create uncertainty in global markets.
Over time, such a trade conflict could lead to significant shifts in supply chains,
as companies look to mitigate risks associated with tariffs.
4. Global supply chain adjustments. In response to the tariffs, companies might seek to diversify their supply chains away from the U.S. to avoid the increased costs associated with tariffs. This could incentivize manufacturers to source materials from countries not affected by U.S. tariffs, potentially reshaping global trade dynamics. Countries like Brazil or India may become more attractive suppliers, altering the traditional supply routes and impacting international trade balances.
5. Inflationary pressures.
The increased costs of imported steel and aluminum could contribute to inflationary pressures within the U.S. economy. As companies pass higher costs on to consumers, the overall price level may rise, potentially leading to tighter monetary policy from the Federal Reserve. This could impact interest rates and economic growth, particularly if inflation exceeds the Fed's targets. 6. Consumer sentiment and political ramifications. Consumer sentiment is likely to shift as people begin to feel the effects of rising prices. If inflation rises significantly, it could lead to public dissent against the administration's trade policies. The political ramifications of these tariffs may influence the upcoming elections, particularly if constituents in manufacturing regions perceive the tariffs as beneficial while those in consumer goods sectors see them as detrimental. 7. Long-term economic strategy and national security considerations. Trump may frame these tariffs as a necessary step for national security, suggesting that reliance on foreign steel and aluminum can compromise U.S. manufacturing capabilities. Over the long term, this could lead to policies aimed at increasing domestic production and reducing dependencies. However, the sustainability of such a strategy remains uncertain, especially if domestic manufacturers cannot scale up efficiently or if other countries retaliate in ways that disrupt U.S. exports.
8. Technological and industrial innovation.
In the face of increased tariffs, U.S. manufacturers may invest in technology and processes to improve efficiency, aiming to reduce production costs and remain competitive. This innovation could eventually lead to advancements in manufacturing practices that bolster the U.S. steel and aluminum sectors, potentially reducing reliance on imports in the long run.
9. Legal and institutional challenges.
The imposition of tariffs may face legal challenges from affected countries and industries.
The World Trade Organization (WTO) could become involved, and ongoing litigation may create further uncertainty in trade relations.
Legal battles could delay the implementation or modification of these tariffs, impacting businesses that plan based on the current trade landscape.
Conclusion. In summary,
Trump's decision to impose a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports is poised to have far-reaching consequences for the U.S. economy, trade relations, and political dynamics. While it may provide short-term gains for some domestic industries, the long-term effects could include increased costs for consumers, potential job losses in affected sectors, and escalating trade conflicts with global partners. The coming months will be critical in shaping the landscape of U.S. trade policy and economic health, and stakeholders across industries will need to adapt quickly to navigate the evolving situation.